3, 2, 1, go. Halo guys. Jadi hari ini aku mau melakukan interview dengan salah satu temanku. Dia namanya Abe. Jadi si Abe ini adalah mahasiswa asing. Dia dari Australia dan kebetulan dia lagi belajar ke Indonesia. Nah, mau tahu gimana keseruannya interview aku hari ini? Langsung aja.
I think often people assume that Bule or international students or international people are generally much richer than they probably are. I know from my experience most of the international students here studying are on scholarships. They're not actually paying for themselves. The government, or be that their own home government or the government of Indonesia or the University of Indonesia or another university is paying for their study all their time over here. I know in my experience I'm only really able to be across here because the Australian government is paying for me to be here, and so the assumption that Bule are quite rich or well off I think is often incorrect. Sometimes it's true, but I think generally it's an exaggeration. Yeah, so I think that there's not very many differences between the way in which you are treated if you're an Indonesian individual or if you're an international individual. But I think sometimes there is subtle changes in prices. Generally that's not in markets or in general day-to-day life. Normally that's almost identical, if not identical, to Indonesian prices. But I think when you go to tourist locations, often the prices will be inflated if you are an international individual, despite having a kitas or something along those lines. So a couple of months ago, me and some friends went and hiked Gunung Pangrango.
Okay.
And the price there was almost 10 times greater for an international individual compared to the Indonesian individuals that we were hiking alongside. And that was interesting. Sometimes shopkeepers will guess what you want rather than listening to actually what you ask them for. It's nothing significant. Normally it is just in terms of shopkeepers making your food slightly less spicy than you might have asked for, either completely removing sambal or cabe. But I think in general it's not anything particularly significant. Yeah, I think Indonesian people are very friendly. In terms of how open people are, I think it is much more regular to be asked more personal questions in Indonesia than it is, say, in Australia. I think generally it is acceptable to ask whether you're married and what kind of life you live, and to learn much more quickly about personal facts than it is maybe in Australia. I think that's just a slight difference in culture. I think generally when it comes to political ideas or political opinions, generally Indonesians have a similar level of openness to Australians. I think Indonesia has a very interesting way in which they organise the local governance, in that everybody knows everybody else. I think the way in which you know your kind of district head and everybody above you, and kind of knowing your individual community, is something that does not really happen in Australia. I think while in Indonesia it causes a lot more bureaucracy and often slows down processes in terms of moving houses and that kind of stuff, I think it's slightly lovely in that you get to know the community around you in a more in-depth manner, and I think that's something that Australia could take on board. And generally in Australia, if you're living in a neighbourhood, you might get to know the immediate neighbours, maybe 2 or 3 houses next to you, but I think generally much farther than that you wouldn't really get to know those people. sure what I think. I am aware of the differences. I'm aware that it's less, I wouldn't say less affectionate, but less physical in the way in which you display affection. I think there's definitely differences in terms of the way in which somebody brought up in Australian cultural opinion shows their affection to their friends and their significant other. I think maybe in Indonesia people are much more open to giving each other personal compliments, particularly among guys, which I think is lovely. But I think at the same time, it's probably more acceptable in Australia to give somebody that you are friends with or you're in a relationship with a hug in public, or to kiss your girlfriend or wife in public, or something along those lines. I'm not sure if that's necessarily a good or a bad thing. I think it's just a difference in terms of the way in which people think affection should be shown, and what is something for behind closed doors and something for the public space. I don't think it's necessarily something that needs to be thought too hard about. I think it's just what's done. I don't think people need to try and bend themselves out of shape to behave in a way that people see fit, but at the same time I think understanding the way in which the culture that you're living in views public displays of affection is something that's important. I think you need to behave in a way that is acceptable to the general society around you. I think everywhere has different stereotypes, and stereotypes are often untrue broadly. Going to the cinema with Indonesian and Western friends that I have here at the University of Indonesia is a good experience, not just watching the movies, but then being able to see the way in which people interpret a movie in maybe a way that is different to me, and then being able to talk about the content or the ideas expressed in that movie, and be able to see the way in which people view the world differently. I think that's something that's important in life, being able to think about the way in which you view the world, and then compare it to the way in which other people view the world, and then maybe see the way in which you might be able to or might have to change the way you live and behave, kind of think about relationships and self-identity and the way in which life should be lived. I think that's something that's really great through not just watching movies by yourself, but watching movies with other people. Something I've thought very much about, but I think tolerance means different things to different people, and I think having a strong idea of what you think it means to be tolerant in a moral way is important. Not to shun your own beliefs, but at the same time not completely disregard other people's differences in opinions is something that is important in tolerance. And I think just if I was to be teaching children, my children or other people's children, about the way in which to be tolerant, I think probably the most important thing is to behave in a way that you think is acceptable, and just bear witness to the way in which you think through your actions. I think that's the most important thing in tolerance. Behave in a way that you believe is acceptable, and then allow that to be a witness in and of itself. Thank you very much.